Welcome to Catch You Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modies. Contact email is catchyaoutdoors@gmail.com. The website is catchyaoutdoors.com, and our Facebook page is Catch You Outdoors. Books. Yes, I have books. The titles are Bridge to Paradise and What I Know About Fishing Southwest Florida. They're both available on Amazon Kindle. Bridge to Paradise can also be had on my website, catchyaoutdoors.com. Those will be autographed, and the price includes shipping. Today's episode is number 21. This one's for you old folks out there like me. However, I will cross the line downward a bit in age as we go. So there's something in here for the 30, 40, 50s, but mostly us old folks. The title is Outdoor Retirement. The possibilities are endless if you have the energy. Smile. Oh, man. Yeah, if you have the energy, it's absolutely fabulous. We go further, though. I really want to throw out some stuff here, some quick additional stuff from last week's fishing discussion. It was about the MirrOlure. And I forgot to point it. Well, I didn't really forget to point it. Well, I guess I did. I got an email the day after I posted it up with a notice from MirrOlure that they are now releasing their own hooks for replacements of the treble hook. So they're releasing a line of their own inline hooks, which I'm a fan of. So I didn't tell you about inline hooks is what I meant to say. I think it's a great idea to take trebles off whenever you can, but it creates certain problems. When you remove a treble hook from a lure like the MirrOlure, like a hard plastic, it might throw it out of balance. A lot depends on the weight of the original hook versus the weight of the hook that you're applying. And so some balancing tricks had to be done a lot of times with these lures to make them track right. Well, MirrOlure announced that they are releasing their own version of inline hooks, single hooks for these lures, and they will be balanced. So basically you can order whatever you need for whatever lure you have. And I think that is really, really cool. I'm glad to see that they're doing that. Okay, now on to today's Outdoor Retirement Podcast. If you are young, say 20s to 50s, yes, that's still young, you should also pay attention to this information and advice. Sort of, you'll all be in your 60s before you know it. I promise you. It happened to me. Suddenly your kids will be replaced with grandkids, and they soon will be driving boats and cars. Your grandkids will. It's alarming. So please keep that in mind. This is a little bit of this is obviously for everybody. Let's get started. While old age has its downside, there are upsides. In a word, discounts. Because we're still alive. They feel like we've earned it, I guess. I'm not speaking of the indoor type discounts, but the outdoor type. We all know about theaters and movies and concerts and things like that. Nope, that's not where we're going here. This is an outdoor show, so this is primarily the outdoor type. My brother and I had a discussion on the boat not too long ago about being in our 60s. We love to do outdoor stuff, but sometimes our age sets us back. We both believe we both talked about this, that retirement's backwards. What we mean by that is that we should probably have all this time off until we're 35. Yeah, your retirement should be on the other end. And then when you turn 35, you go to work for the next 30 years. Must be a way, besides winning a huge lottery, to pull that off. Not that a good many retirees continue to work. Yes, they do. You see, most people assume that you're retired. Okay, now I get to sit on my butt. I'm just going to go to the beach and I'm going to watch the sunrise and I'm going to watch sunsets. And that's all I'm going to do. That is not how it works. Nope. When you get old, you find stuff to do. Because guess what? Within about a year, you're bored out of your mind. There's also, in some cases, there are also limited funds. You're on a fixed income suddenly. You don't have all that extra money pouring in, kind of the surprise stuff. So you find yourself doing odd jobs. You find yourself working at Publix. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've been to Publix. Plenty of retirees in Publix, and that that's not unusual, and it's not bad either, because I'm certainly not the type of person that's going to tell you to sit home and do absolutely nothing. But there are a lot of people that continue working, a lot of retired people that continue working even after hanging up their tools. Use me as an example. Captain Rob has written a couple of books over the last 2 years. I started a podcast. I must be crazy. But And there's many, many other things I've been doing. I've been writing stories for stuff. I got a new magazine I'm writing for now again. I'm writing a monthly for them. So even though I have some time on my own to kind of do what I want to do when I want to do it, I can schedule. I still have a lot of irons in the fire, as it probably should be. So let's start with this outside discount for seniors. Seniors, I hate that word. Say old folks. It's okay, man. Old folks. See, I don't know about seniors. Anyway, seniors are like in high school, 12th grade. Seniors are in college. The last year, you've made it. One of the big ones for discounts, and we'll start with that one, is the Senior Lifetime Pass for national parks. Now, this is a biggie. It's for folks that are 62 and older. The cost is $80. You don't have to renew it. It's one shot. If you're on a very limited budget, like I mentioned before, you can buy an annual for $20. After you've purchased 4 of those in a row, it rolls to a lifetime. In other words, it's kind of like 4 easy annual payments of $20 each. But nevertheless, this is without a doubt one of the best of the outdoor discounts that you can run into, because there's about 2,000 recreation sites in the United States that you can visit on this pass. Annual and lifetime senior passes provide access to all of those recreation sites managed by 6 federal agencies. I'm going to read them off. They're the National Park Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Reclamation, U.S. Forest Service, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The passes cover entrance and standard amenities, day use, recreation fees, and provide discounts on some expanded amenity recreation fees. Sign up now and save. Seriously, the sign up now and save is kind of really, really important. This pass used to be around 20. I think it was under $20. I want to say 12 or 15. It was really cheap. And they made an announcement several years back. Those that had turned 62, you could buy it at that price for, like, I don't know, another month, 2 months, where they had a deadline, and then it's going to go to $80 because they hadn't raised a price in 100 years. And I'm like, oh wow, I got to get to a national park. And the first thing I thought was Everglades National Park. Well, I didn't even realize that Ding Darling, which is a wildlife refuge, that counts. And Ding Darling was selling them. So, which, by the way, for those that have no idea what I'm talking about, Ding Darling is a wildlife refuge on Sanibel Island. So it was close to where I was living in Fort Myers, and it enabled me to run out there and get one of those passes at a ridiculously low price. And I was lucky. I was 63, 64. I was old enough to go do it. And it was kind of funny when I got to the park, there were a lot of people there that were getting that pass. So it's important to do it now, because I have a funny feeling the Park Service is not going to let this thing go on and on and on at $80. Inflation, et cetera, park services, keeping people employed in the parks, and we could go on and on and on. But it's important. Grab it. It is an absolute bargain. I just ran into one of my neighbors. He was walking his dog, and he told me that he and his friends went, and I can't remember the number, but I think he said they hit up 40 national parks. They spent all summer traveling with a trailer, a RV, and just hit up all these parks. And I thought, man, that's really cool. I would love to do something like that. In Florida, there are 11 national parks: Canaveral National Seashore, Playa Linda Beach, Biscayne National Park, Dry Tortugas National Park, Everglades National Park, Big Cypress National Preserve, DeSoto National Memorial, Gulf Islands National Seashore, Fort Caroline National Memorial, and I'm going to try this, Timucuan, Timucuan. One of those Indian names that I haven't learned how to pronounce yet here in Florida. You can tell a local Floridian if they can pronounce stuff, like Miccosukee and things like that. That one, Timucuan, sounds right. Ecological and Historic Preserve. So that's a big one. Castillo de San Marcos National Monument and Fort Matanzas National Monument. Those are the 11 that are in Florida. Also remember that the pass covers many other areas besides just the national parks in Florida. For example, I've already mentioned Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge. There's also, I'm just going to rattle off a few of these: Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge, Arthur R. Marshall Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge, the Crocodile Lake National Wildlife Law. I'm going to have to check that one out. Of course, there's Ding Darling. I mentioned that. Florida Panther National Wildlife, Lake Woodruff National Wildlife, Lower Suwannee National Wildlife Refuge, been there. Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, the National Key Deer Refuge, that's the one down on Big Pine Key. Pelican Island, St. Mark's Coastal Loop, and St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge. So, and that's just a few. I mean, there are a lot more than what I just rattled off. There are all kinds of these places that you can go to on this pass. Another great way to save money is get an outdoor pass for, come on, you can do it, state parks. We've already talked about national, right? If you want to play outdoors, here's another great way to play outdoors. Get an annual pass for state parks. Now, the state park pass does not include a senior discount. However, they do have an annual pass of $60 per person or $120 for a family. Let me caution you on the 60 versus 120. The 120 family is a great deal if it's going to be dad or mom driving the car and has a carload of people with them. Up to 8, by the way, are covered. So if you have that, then that's great. In the case of my wife and I, Janelle and I, we bought individual 60s because if the other they give you one card. So your card, if you're at the park, the other person can't come in. The other person might be home and decide, we discovered this because she came to meet me and couldn't get in, had to pay the fee. So here's the deal. If you're a husband and wife, you like to go to the park, but you go separately, like I like to bike ride, she likes to walk, and we will actually go to the park at different times based on our schedules. So $60 a piece for those. There is a military discount for active and non-active military. You have to have your DD-214, and you have to show that at the time of signing up for the annual pass, and that saves you 25%. So that's a pretty healthy discount if you're military. Again, what I really thought was cool about this was $120 a year will cover you and 8 people getting into the state park. Now, some state parks have got different little deals, and it depends on who runs it and where it is. But in most cases, this applies to the state parks in Florida, not out of state. One that I can think of that this does not apply to is Weeki Wachee is owned by state parks. So obviously they don't let you in with a carload of 8 people with a pass. No, it doesn't work that way because that's an attraction. So please keep that in mind. You kind of want to check before you go in. But as an example for what Janelle and I use it for, we do state parks right here in the Fort Lauderdale, Broward County area, and we also go out down to the Keys. And we do the parks in the Keys that way. And it works out great. In the state of Florida, we have lots of amusement parks, big and small. Most have some sort of senior discount. So if you're retired, this is an ideal place to go visit, including, believe it or not, Disney and Universal and other small attractions, of course, around the state. I'm a little too old to be riding some of the rides. I still attempt a few. Probably shouldn't. There's that big sign out front that says, if you're too short here. However, if you have every kind of weird disease in the world and you're old and well, anyway, yeah. So some of them I go, I got to try this anyway. This looks cool. So warning, warning, warning. But I like going to Disney. I didn't go to Disney until I was an old dude. I kept telling my wife and kids that I'd never been. And at some point, there were grandkids too, by the way. I had never been. I grew up in Florida. We left just about the time Disney opened up. By the time I got back, I was still entranced by the smaller places, and now all of a sudden we had Disney, Universal, Busch Gardens, and things that really grown. They gotten huge. And eventually I was given it as a Christmas present. I was given the 4-day pass with the wife and my daughter. They set it all up and we went. And I liked it. I have to admit, I enjoyed myself thoroughly. So if you haven't been to Disney or using the excuse, I don't want to be in the middle of something like that, you might want to try it. It was actually quite a bit of fun. So anyway, there are discounts and things like that. They also have a lot of special outdoor events at these places. Now, speaking of outdoor events, Florida resident discounts pretty much count as well. So, for example, Disney I can speak about. Universal, I've heard of it too. I haven't seen it as much, but Disney has things called the Florida Resident Passes and Florida Resident Discounts. So on top of the fact that senior stuff is going on, you can also get a pass. Like right now there's one going on where it's $50 a day for 4 days. The total ticket price is $199 plus your tax. So you can go for 4 days of Disney, do anything you want, go to any one of the parks you want to for $50 a day. That is a bargain, but you got to be a Florida resident and you got to have a Florida driver's license. So being an old folk in Florida has more advantages than just lower admission costs. Sites. We have warm weather. It's good for the old bones. Yeah, freezing temperatures suck. Nobody likes to be cold. Well, I don't know. I can't say that. I have met a few people that go, boy, I like cold weather. Well, okay, you are definitely the rarity. That's okay, though. The average winter temperature are tough to talk about in Florida due to the extremely long length of the state. I mean, I always look at this. People will say, well, what's the temperature? What's the average temperature in Florida? Well, you can't just give a blanket statement to that because North Florida is considerably different than South Florida. North Florida is along the Georgia border. They can have snow, they can have sleet, ice, they can have below freezing temperatures. It's not normal. Well, no, it is somewhat normal, but not, let's just say it's unusual. That's a better word. Um, and the freezing temperatures are, no, again, I already said I don't care for those things. Um, so over the state of Florida, come down to the middle. The average temperatures in the middle of the state are going to run somewhere around 50 degrees or so at night, up to 60 something during the day. As you go a little further south, you're going to get 60 at night and 70 days. Over here in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, we actually, like today is 81, and this is February, whatever the devil the day is, February the 11th. So today it's actually 81. Our nighttime temperatures will be in the 60s. It'll be 62, 63. So it's very, very comfortable. And with that comfort, gives you lots of time outside. One of the advantages of Florida in general, not just from the retirement stage, is just we play outside. We stay outside. We really don't do much inside, except for writing 2 books and starting a podcast. That might have been a bad decision, but I enjoyed it and the books are out and it's like, yay, I actually accomplished that. So, perhaps I need to better manage my time, though, so I can get out there and fish a whole lot more than I have been fishing in the past. And I am. That's something I did as a New Year's resolution this year. So I have to admit, though, I like being old. It, of course, as they say, beats the alternative. I find that I'm much more productive now, and that has been scientifically backed up by some recent research. I found this interesting, so I thought I would pass it along since we're talking about retirement outdoors in this particular podcast. A recent USA study found that the most productive age group are those that are 60 to 70 years of age. The second is 70 to 80 years of age. And the third is 50 to 60 years of age. The average age of a Nobel Prize winner is 62. There are tons of outdoor events in Florida that'll enhance anybody's life. Young, old, doesn't matter. Because Florida's great winter weather, we don't have to stop doing outside events when November arrives. If anything, we increase them due to the cooler weather, ironically. Some of my favorites are art fairs, orchid and plant shows, boat shows, and the inevitable festival upon festival. As a matter of fact, over the next 3 months, Janelle and I are going to a Renaissance festival here in Fort Lauderdale, and then 3 different Scottish festivals around Florida. Let's see, we're going to go to one in Mount Dora, another one back here in Fort Lauderdale, and then another one over in Dunedin. And Dunedin is that's the big one. I can't wait for that. Lad and lassies and kilts and much bagpipe playing and Highland single malt scotch. Now here's one thing that I rarely mention. I haven't even mentioned it in my books because I really don't do it much anymore. But when I started thinking about Scotland, I thought, the home of golf. Retired people love to play golf. I did a little research. I played quite a bit as a youth. I played when I was a banker because that was a social way of meeting other bankers and customers. I never was really good at it. My drives are horrible. However, my short irons are great, so I could make up for whatever awful thing I did driving off the tee after I got close to the pin. And I did pretty good at that. My handicap was around a 15 to 17, so it wasn't too awful. I started at a handicap of about 26, so I worked on it. After cancer struck, which struck my back, golfing became a serious backseat thing. Although I've toyed with the idea of trying it again because I've been told it would probably be good for me. So I'll look at that. But fishing is my main thing. So if I'm going to spend time outside doing something, it's going to be that. But I knew many people and know many people that do both very well, play golf and go fishing. As a matter, a lot of my old charter customers did both. Golfing in Florida is huge because an older crowd can still play it. I'm going to put that as gently as I can because I'm an old dude, so I can say this. But as you age, things like baseball, football, even tennis, stuff like that, the tougher stuff starts to fade in a big way. I will not. I like to snow ski, but I'm not going to do it again. I know that I'm fragile as I get older, and if I run into a tree, I will either bust everything or die. And that works for a lot of sports in that realm. Whereas golf is a fairly safe thing because you don't have to play the whole 18 holes if you don't want to. You can play nine. You can stop when you want. Quite frankly, you pay to play, but if you want to back out, you can. You can take it easy. I once played with a gentleman when I lived in Louisville, Kentucky. I played a small course off of one of the parks. They're called Seneca Park, and I would show up by myself and they would pair you up with someone. And a couple of times I got paired up with this gentleman who told me he was 86. I later found out he was really 92. He just told everybody he was 86, no matter what year it was. That guy was amazing. Even his two short drives, which put him close, were better than my one long one that were in the woods. So, and he taught me a lot actually about angles and how to roll up on a hill and roll the ball down toward the green and playing the angles. And stuff. I loved playing with him actually, but that was when I started to realize that, you know what, there is something you can do outside as you age. And golf is actually a pretty cool thing, no doubt about it. Florida has, believe it or not, over 1,100 active golf courses. For a time there was a little worry that the golf courses may be falling off or disappearing. A lot of that was due to construction. A lot of times the golf course would go under, especially back during the depression we had. I call it back in, oh, 2008. And things got better since then, but there are tons and tons of golf courses around Florida. As a matter of fact, you look up the top whatever, like the top restaurants in your area, the top bookstores, the top fishing spots. You'll get 25 to 50. If you go on the web and just type in top golf courses, you're going to get 100 of the top best golf courses in Florida. There are a lot of really, really good ones. And some of them are fairly reasonable, and some of them are quite expensive, especially clubs and golf clubs and things like that. So, as far as the retiree is concerned, there are discounts. They do offer discounts. I will say this, they are tougher to find in the winter because everyone's here. They know that people up north are escaping the cold and come down here and want to play golf. And there are a couple things definitely happen. The discounts start to disappear and tee times disappear. So it gets tougher and tougher to play. When I was still playing over in Fort Myers, we lived near the San Carlos Golf Club. And what I did was I'd go at 11 o'clock. After everybody had gotten on the course and were almost finished playing from the early morning startups, I could play, started at 11, and they would just let me they would pick a start. They'd say, start on hole number 8, go that way. I'm like, okay. And I didn't mind doing that. So there are ways around it when the season comes, but season can be terrible if you're trying to get a golf date, a tee time. Exercise, yes, it's wonderful. You can get a cart if you want to, but if you walk 9 holes, by golly, it's good for you. I mean, it's really, really good for you. It's something that we don't do in the summer when we golf. I mean, in the summertime, I was happy to have a cart because when you're riding from the green to the next tee, you at least have a breeze blowing on you. And because Florida can be brutally hot in the summer. But in the wintertime, remember, most golfers, if you're like me, you can probably get by with 5 clubs. You don't need a bag full. You're going to have 5 clubs that you use really well, with including the putter. So you're going to have 4 clubs that you use really well plus the putter. So if you do that, if you pare that down, get a small little backpack carrying type bag, a golf bag, you can carry that around and not feel like you're just absolutely winding yourself. And you can always stop, you can always quit. I don't recommend it, but you can always do that. I want to interject something here just from a personal standpoint. I went to Scotland with my wife years ago. And one thing I did was play a chip and putt course. And that is basically nothing more than you have a putter and you have basically a huge open face type club. Most open faced wedge you could possibly think of, that kind of thing. Uh, you would think this is like a bunny course. This is really easy. It wasn't. It was dreadful. I've never played anything like it in Scotland. And one thing I learned right off the bat from traveling around Scotland, I toured a couple of golf courses. I didn't get to play at several of them, but I got to tour them because Janelle was on a fact-finding mission with a writer. So we went around to these different courses. And let me tell you what, the courses in America are really, really easy by comparison. Now, I'll probably get some flack from golfers for this, going, oh, no, they really are. No, no. Scotland, for example, we have sand traps. Scotland's got bunkers. There's a difference. A bunker is a hole in the ground held up. The dirt is held up by blocks, either rock or bricks. The ball goes in. You can't even see out of it when you climb down the ladder to get in it. You're either going to have to throw it out or pray when you chip it that it doesn't hit the wall and hit you right back in the forehead. The fairways are wide and open, but they're full of all kinds of long grass and just it's very hard to describe. You'd have to go to Scotland and see what I'm talking about. Um, America, we have very, very groomed fairways. If you hit your ball on the wrong fairway, if someone will let you, you can actually play it back. The only place I've run into really serious insanity in woods and stuff is right here in Florida. There are some courses that if you hit something into the bushes or near the edge of water, you should not go after it. We have these wonderful little creatures called alligators, and they're very, very fond of golfers. So please keep that in mind. But just as an observation, Scotland was really, really something. So if you are a golfer, an avid golfer, and you ever get a chance to play out in another country, I would highly recommend going to Scotland. I think it would be it's an adventure. It's an adventure of a lifetime for a golfer, and it's really beautiful. We went to St. Andrews. It's gorgeous. The home of golf. If you can figure out a way to do it, do it. One really serious thing that's helped retirees out a lot in Florida during the period of COVID over the last 2 years has been being outside. We really have this great advantage with the weather the way it is. 365 days a year minus the days for rain, which you could probably take off 30 or 35 of those. And I'm talking a real rainy day that keeps you inside. We've been lucky to be able to go outside. We were able to go to the beach. There were some lockdowns. There were some early on problems when people were freaked out and pretty scared about what was going on. But as time moved on, Florida opened up, which I understand from reading and watching some of the news really ticked people off. And they thought we were doing it in a bad way. The reality was, I don't think so. We live outdoors. We live outside. We don't live inside of closed-in malls. Our malls are even open. We pretty much eat outside. We patio eat almost all the time. It's going to have to be blistering hot or really cold, which doesn't happen down here in South Florida very often, for us not to be outside. So we had a distinct advantage. And being retired at that time and my age, and being a cancer patient, I obviously had a lot of trepidation and a lot of fear about what was going on with it. But I have learned to stay out of the way of other people. That's all I could do. And thank goodness it appears to me at this point that it's getting much, much better than it was. But my original thought, we're lucky to have outside. We're lucky to have the beaches. We're lucky to have golf courses and the things that we can go to. And we can actually avoid other people if we don't want to be around them. We have miles and miles and miles of beaches. We have crowded beaches, which are usually located, for example, Fort Lauderdale Beach, right in the middle of Fort Lauderdale. But all you got to do is go about 10 miles north and the beaches are no longer crowded. The same thing with the Florida Keys. There are all these wonderful places you can get away. I didn't even speak about boating today because we'll put that in a whole nother podcast. But, thousands and thousands of retirees boat. And that's another way. Kayak like I do. Things to get outside and away from everybody. And it's a great way to stay well, because you're literally exercising. If you're going to sit on a couch all day long and eat potato chips and drink beer and watch football, I'm not picking on football players, people. I didn't hear that. Baseball, basketball, whatever. If you're going to sit on the couch all day, bad, really bad, especially in Florida. When you live way, way up north and it's cold, you kind of have to do that. And I think that's what makes this place so unique and why I love Florida so much. So being retired in Florida is a really, really good thing. Those of you in your 30s, 40s, 50s, I hope you're planning because it's getting more and more expensive every day. So start packing that money away and getting yourself ready for the days that are coming a lot sooner than you think. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. If you enjoyed the podcast, please tell a friend. Next week's podcast is titled Short Stories. It should be fun. Catch You Outdoors is hosted by Anchor and available via Spotify and Apple Podcast. Our Facebook page is Catch You Outdoors. Our website's catchyoutdoors.com. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.